Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Busisiwe. We're coming to you live from SABC here in Auckland Park in Johannesburg. And my guest tonight is the Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. She's been in the news. Just last week, the court had some harsh words to say about her and, over the controversial case related to the Reserve Bank and ABSA. She's going to talk to us about that and many other issues related to her office tonight. Is there a question mark over the integrity of her office? Or are we being unfair by constantly comparing her to her predecessor and so on? She is here in our studios tonight and we'll be having that frank dialogue with her shortly. Today I thought I should reflect on the debates in Parliament. Man. We've gotten so much used to mediocrity when it comes to the quality of debates in our Parliament. And this week, 3 MPs really raised the bar and restored my own faith in this institution and what it can achieve. Floyd Chivambu of the EFF, John Steenhuisen of the DA, Naledi Pandor, Minister of Science and Technology, really lifted the bar in their response to the State of the Nation address. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
Our program of international policy and practice has been significantly strengthened by the 54th Conference of the African National Congress. The majority party has agreed that government must cut diplomatic ties with Israel, given the absence of genuine initiatives by Israel to secure lasting peace and a viable two-state solution that includes full freedom and democracy for the Palestinian people.
We must learn the lessons of how Zuma was able to capture the state, subjugate our parliament, and tame our institutions. One man could never wreak such devastation on his own. So while you set to work, Mr. President, on fixing the executive, we as parliament must introspect very honestly and very carefully about how we fix our parliament and address its failings over the last 8 years to effect oversight. We must firewall this parliament and our institutions to protect them from this ever happening again. In this blush of new dawn, we mustn't be lulled into complacency or hypnotized and charmed into naivety.
The Gupta criminal syndicate has shifted billions of rands out of South Africa. It's a fact. SARS is failing to collect revenue in a manner in which is expected. A shortfall of 50 billion rands, as was announced here. The National Prosecutions Authority is dysfunctional. It works according to who is in political office. They only make arrests now that Jacob Zuma is no more. So it means that this NPA has got eyes. It looks as to who is the political principal. And what assurance do we have that it is not going to do the same thing if you ever commit crime?
I've got a lot of time for these 3. I mean, if President Ramaphosa could pick these to be in his cabinet, I tell you, we're getting somewhere. You can follow the show, of course, on hashtag Frankly Speaking. But tonight, you can also give us a ring on 011-714-8052. You can tweet us at JJ Tabani at SABC News Online. Somebody who must be held to high standards, indeed, is the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Come, let's go and talk frankly to her. Welcome, Advocate. Thank you, please. Welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us. Your office has been fantastic in setting this up, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm also representing my office and my staff. We appreciated that you're giving us this opportunity as well.
Yeah. Once we said that you were coming to talk to us, you saw on social media people really just expressing disquiet about your office, saying that, no, she's not independent. And how does that make you feel? It seems to be a terrible scorecard in a sense, in terms of just the general perception of your office. How does that make you feel?
I must say that it's easy to comment without as well hearing the other side of the story, because, it's easy, yes, to read whatever you read in the media, in social media. So I'm here to set the record straight and as well to clarify issues which people are not happy with, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of untruth in what people are saying.
Well, let's say about that. Let's start with just what do you consider some of the big highlights of your office? I think you've been in office now, what, 18 months, thereabout?
Almost.
You know,
yes.
so if you were to pick one or two big issues that you would say these things define the successes of your tenure so far, what would those be?
I must say, as an office, we adopted the Vision 2023. It has 8 pillars, which has been mainstreamed into our strategic plan. Those 8 pillars are focusing more on the grassroots, issues of using our indigenous languages when we engage with the public, issues of using your community radio stations to educate people about the office, also issues relating to MOUs, which we enter with various institutions where we can make sure that we allow access to our services because we don't have the resources to expand our footprint as an office. I must say that there's one of the biggest highlights of the MOU, the settlement agreement we signed with the City of Cape Town regarding the Masiphumelele community, where the executive mayor is working with the community, the Human Rights Commission, the public protector, I'm the mediator there. The city is working very hard to at least make sure that people of Masiphumelele have a habitable environment to live in. As a team, we've finalized more than 13,000 cases or complaints, which are bread and butter issues. And
these were lodged during your tenure, or you found some of them as backlog?
In fact, I must say they were lodged during my tenure. Remember, those which were a backlog, around 4,000, were the carryover. Total of the cases which we've dealt with or we've received so far is 18,000. But then out of that, we've dealt with 13,000, we've resolved them. And I must say it's bread and butter issues.
And any big cases that you would say, these are like your signature cases, you've been there for 18 months, we can't say you are new anymore. Is there a big case that you say, this one has shifted the ground in as far as the work you're doing is concerned?
There's a lot of big cases which I've done. To me, is the issue of the grassroots, the poor of the poorest, who have, as an office, we are there as their safe haven. A lot of the reports I've issued is around 40 reports. Formal reports, JJ, and unfortunately, people pick and choose only few of those cases.
What's the general theme of those cases? Are we in trouble as a country in as far as corruption is concerned, for example? Would that constitute a majority of those cases, those 40 cases that you pronounced on?
It does, especially the ones relating to procurement-related issues, because you'd find that there's a lot of wasteful, fruitless expenditure, I mean, as well, not following the PFMA, also government spending a lot of money unnecessarily, where you'd find that prices are even being very high and the government is just paying. So we do have those. But again, I must say that we still have a lot of challenge of our accounting officers following the laws up to the T, especially when it comes to issues of procurement.
Okay, it's an interesting one. We'll come to it now. After the break, I want to talk to you about the lowlights, where you think, here I really have stuffed up. We're going to talk about that after the break. If you've just joined us, we're talking to Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Let's take a break. After the break, we continue that conversation.
Have a funeral policy.
No matter the sacrifices you've made or the hours you've worked, you can't always say yes. Avbab's cashback funeral plan not only provides funeral insurance for your family, it also helps you to say yes to life's little extras more often. Because for every 5 claim-free years, you'll get your 5th year's premiums based on your monthly premium value paid back in cash. SMS Cash 1 to 41790 at no cost and we'll call you. AVBOB, we're here for you.
If you want an AVBOB representative to contact you, SMS Cash 1 and your name to 41790.
Oh, sir.
Finally, getting the click in Xhosa right. Mowing the lawn without mowing the cable. When your washing machine gives you all your socks back.
With so many good deals at the Tops at Spa Subfest, you'll find any reason to celebrate. Buy a six-pack of any Strongbow apple ciders handies for only $52.99. Only at the Tops at Spa Subfest.
Corruption both in the public and the private sectors needs to be combated.
Where there are clear cases of wrong that has been done, that must commence immediately.
Something is being done about corruption in our
currency, even although it's strengthened dramatically after the ANC's recent elective conference, could conceivably go stronger yet.
He had the soul that would not be for sale.
Stay tuned to Your World for your final news roundup, Monday to Sunday at 21:30.
You are on Frankly Speaking. We're coming to you live from Auckland Park here in Johannesburg. My guest tonight, the Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. You can give us a ring on 011-714-0852 if you want to join this conversation. Advocate, what are the things in these 18 months where you say, here I have stuffed up, really I got it wrong? What would those be, Advocate?
I wouldn't say I got it wrong, but I would say I should have focused more on, especially direct communication with the public and educating them more on what the office can do, especially utilizing the direct communication with them, using social media more, where we can communicate, we can educate, and be able to make sure that cases or complaints are reported to the institution. We are also assisting in making sure that we eradicate issues relating to maladministration, where we will have citizenry who will be able to make sure that they hold the public servants to account as and when they feel that the public servants are not doing what they are supposed to be doing.
Anything else? That sounds like quite basic, and in fact, it's something that probably you should do more in terms of being an advocate for anti-corruption, taking some of the lessons from your cases, communicating with the public. But other than that, you don't think there's anything? I mean, there's a lot of noise about your proximity to the president, for example. Is there something you could have done different in terms of how your office communicated with the office of the president so that you are not seen as being too cozy with the president, especially the former president?
I don't know where that comes from, because, I mean, I met the president after my appointment, and after that, I only met the president during when there's official state visits, but not meeting the president. The only people I met in the president's office are the officials of the presidency, the legal advisor of the president. And I should be working with the presidency because the Executive Members Ethics Act requires me that I must investigate executives and finalize those matters within 30 days. Therefore, if I don't do that, I normally write to the president. I've received a complaint against
this. It's in the normal course of your work, in a sense.
And I didn't manage to finalize the matter in 30 days. Therefore, as soon as the report is ready, I'll send it. Therefore, engaging with the office of the president
is part and parcel of
my responsibilities, because the presidency was also worried that we receive a lot of those. We need to take stock. How many of those letters you wrote, how many have you finalized, how many are still outstanding?
If I can just come in there, though, the court last week had very harsh words for you in as far as you declaring that you went to present or met with the presidency twice, right, before the report was out, and you didn't offer the same opportunity to the other parties. Please clarify that, because that sounded, like an indictment on your office not to have declared to the court that you have had those meetings, if it was all above board, Advocate.
One of the meetings with the presidency, the legal advisor, was relating exactly to what I'm saying. Issues relating to the Executive Members Ethics Act. How can we make sure that we deal with those issues relating to the Public Protector rules? Because they've been also saying, when are you publishing the Public Protector rules?
But was it an omission that you didn't tell that to the court? The court
that was not necessary for this case.
It was not necessary.
I disclosed the one which was relating to the Section 79.
So are you going to appeal that decision? Because it's quite a damning judgment that you seem to be not honest to the court about who you met, who you didn't meet.
I'm still taking legal advice. I'll be meeting with the senior counsel, and then we will determine whether I appeal or only focus on the whole report or the whole judgment, or only focus on the personal.
We'll come back to the rest of the judgment a little later. But Mr. Du Plessis has a question for you. Mr. Du Plessis from Klerksdorp. Hello, Mr. Du Plessis.
Hello, yes. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good evening to you. What is your question to the Public Protector?
I would like to know from the Public Protector, what is stopping them from arresting Ace Magashule, Tigaba, and all the cronies in the ANC that's been proven?
Oh, we lost Mr. Du Plessis there. But I think the case, one of the cases you've declared on was the Estina. Apparently, there was if you like, a mild finding that did not point a serious finger at MEC, the then MEC Zwane, the Premier. We saw the Hawks searching the Premier's office there not so long ago, etc. Summarize for me your findings on Estina, in line with what Mr. Du Plessis is asking.
I would say to Mr. Du Plessis, the complaint which the Public Protector received in 2013 was relating to the administrative part of the way Estina agreement was entered into, the way Estina was conducting its business, especially being an implementing agent, on the other hand, procuring directly the inflated prices. So the complaint by the DA was relating to all those. I would urge South Africans to read that report, because I've detailed what was the exact complaint by the DA, and it's what has been investigated. There's nowhere in the complaint where it's saying we suspect that Minister Zwane, when he was the MEC, or the Premier has done the following. It all
But
pointed...
in summary, for those who are not going to go through a 400-page report, there's no fault with Zwane and Magashule? That's the question that Du Plessis wants to know.
No.
Those two
in that particular report, there's nothing which was relating to what I've investigated.
I see.
But then I would say to Mr. Du Plessis, the DA and CASAC has taken that report on review. And I'm glad as well that it's on review. And I'm glad that the court will, in fact, in the proceedings, we will also avail the record, so that they can see themselves what was the complaint, what we've investigated, what is the record which we have as an institution.
Let me go back to the case a little bit. Part of that case that has to do with UPSA and so on brought into focus the whole issue of private sector corruption and how that can influence public sector corruption. Do you think you're a bit overzealous right, in trying to create that balance to a point where you ended up giving remedial action that was actually out of the scope of your mandate. I mean, you're instructing Parliament to change the law, something that the courts found that was not within your mandate. Address me on that. How did you get that wrong?
I must say that the judgment by Judge Murphy, which at any rate was not supposed to even go there, because I agreed to set aside that particular remedial action, which is 7.2. And remember again, that remedial action was falling within my scope. But the thing is, the remedial actions of the public protector are binding unless set aside by the court of law. Therefore, in that particular instance, what I've learned from that particular process was that if there's a recommendation which I would want to make, but I need to be very upfront to say this recommendation, it's not binding, but then it's something which needs to be taken into account.
But you are right that you got it wrong in that you lumped it as part of the remedial action, and therefore it could have been binding on Parliament, something that's out of your scope. And
again, it's one thing. I should have allowed that process to go ahead. I mean, one interesting part was the judgment on state of capture judicial review, because legally, again, there was an issue of saying, can the public protector instruct the president where the president is conflicted, and where the president is the president in terms of the Constitution, Section 84, only the president can appoint the commission of inquiry.
I'll come back to the state of capture, because interestingly, when you started office, you said this was not going to be your priority, but I want you to address me on that a little bit when we come back from the break. Let's take a break now, and we continue that conversation with Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane.
For your weekly dose of art and entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
News at 9. We go beyond the headlines of the day's breaking news to bring you all the angles and in-depth analysis of stories. We go beyond the surface, including on how it will impact your life. Join us every day at 9 to zoom in on the day's big stories. The fossil hominid sites at Sterkfontein Caves, known as Cradle of Humankind, were declared a World Heritage Site on the 2nd of December 1999. The Cradle of Humankind covers an area of over 47,000 hectares of privately owned land northwest of Johannesburg. Most of the site is on dolomite, a rock type which is slightly soluble in water. There are currently over 200 caves on the site and 13 fossil sites. We know that Australopithecus africanus were present in the cradle from about 2 to 4 million years ago. It is generally known that hominids are close relatives of human ancestors.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking. We've got an hour tonight, so stay tuned. And after this segment, we're going to go to the headline news, and then we'll continue again until about 9:30. So do give us the ring on 011-714-8052. Advocate, the state of capture. Briefly, what is your perception of the state of capture? Right, there's been a lot of discussion since that report came out in 2015 up to now. If you sum it up from your office, what do you see?
I would say, hence I wanted the Commission of Inquiry to also take over some of the complaints which I have in the office, exactly relating to the same allegations of state of capture, because there's more after the Gupta leaks, issues which needs to be dealt with. People need to be called, and so that they can present their side of the story.
So you haven't arrived at the conclusion that we are captured or not?
I wouldn't say I would arrive at that conclusion, JJ. Remember, I work with the evidence and the...
But you are saying the president must fire Lynn Brown. She's in the middle of this state capture with ESCO.
Lynn Brown, my finding was relating to her behavior, because as an executive, you need to conduct yourself in a certain way.
Particular way.
Yes, and you should be reporting to Parliament, to the National Assembly. When you are asked questions, you need to be, reporting things which you are sure of. Therefore, they rush to respond to those parliamentary questions without making sure that they are indeed have confirmed. I mean, you cannot come back
But for 18 months, you're saying to me that with the prima facie evidence in front of you, all the complaints and so on, you still can't give me a straight answer that indeed there's a problem of state capture. I know there's a commission that's still coming, but surely it could not have been, in a sense, being part of the remedial action if there actually wasn't the problem. In other words, your predecessor could have concluded that report and said, well, these allegations are baseless.
Remember, my predecessor concluded that report by referring the matter to the Commission of Inquiry, and it was basically because of the resources of the office. And as well, remember, I also opposed the judicial review by the president, because I was saying, if the matter is brought back to me, I need an additional 30 million to be able to investigate and deal with the issue of the state of capture. Therefore, for me to just conclude that there is a state of capture without investigating, I'm glad that at least now we will have to get that evidence, call on people to testify and be asked questions, and a conclusion needs to be... Remember, in South Africa, we are a constitutional country and we believe in the rule of law, JJ. We cannot just conclude that a person is captured without going through the process of being objective and listening to the side of the story of that particular person and the evidence before us.
But are you dismissive of suspicions that you are not as independent as you should be? And this also flows from this court judgment that I said earlier, that it's damning. Stories about arriving there and saying people must switch to AN7 channels, stories about you being influenced by the Guptas and so on. Can you just once and for all tell me, are you dismissive of all of that, or is there a part of you that could have done things differently in terms of how you relate with those forces, in a sense, that are seen to be manipulating these processes of state capture?
I must say that the issue of channels, I've clarified that, and I'm surprised that it's still coming up, because I indicated that we need to use channels interchangeably. I read the email which was sent to staff about that. And the issue of the court judgment, I must indicate that we expect judges to be impartial, to be objective. You cannot, as a judge, have a finding that there's suspicion without evidence that indeed, when I met with the presidency, I met with, yes, and you say because of suspicion.
Let's explore that some more after the break, because obviously we've got to take what the judges say quite seriously. We are with Advocate Mkhwebane. We're going to cross now to news headlines, and after the news, we take more of your calls on 011-704-8052. Let's take a break.
News at 9. We go beyond the headlines of the day's breaking news to bring you all the angles and in-depth analysis of stories. We go beyond the surface, including on how it will impact your life. Join us every day at 9 to zoom in on the day's big stories.
Well, a very good evening to you and welcome to a much shorter News at 9. I'm Crisalda Lewis. Well, JJ will continue his discussion with the Public Protector shortly, but first the main stories of the day. The ANC's National Executive Committee met for the first time today since former President Jacob Zuma's resignation. The party's Secretary-General Ace Magashule says the meeting didn't discuss the cabinet reshuffle nor the issue of the appointment of the Deputy President. While the meeting concluded the allocation of committees, Naledi Pandor was not elected to chair any of the committees, leaving speculation that she might be considered for position of Deputy President. David Mabuza is the Deputy President of the ANC and the current Premier of Mpumalanga. And the party's top 6 officials are scheduled to meet tomorrow. The SABC's presidential correspondent Mzwandile Mbeche says discussions around a possible cabinet reshuffle is likely to come up.
There is this anxiety about the cabinet reshuffle. So when we put this question to the SG of the ANC as to did this matter come up, of course, he said because it remains the prerogative of the president, so it couldn't possibly come up, though I would assume there might be consultations that may have happened. But importantly, what the SG told us was that, remember, tomorrow is Monday and is the day of the officials. He said as the officials, the top 6, that is, they are meeting and they have no agenda. So the fact that they have no agenda, so which means this issue could come up. And if this issue comes up, so they would need, they would deal with it, they would discuss it. And perhaps to underline some of the things that he said we can't keep the country waiting in anxiety. So this issue needs to be resolved as soon as possible. So my suspicion is that tomorrow's meeting of the top 6 will really delve into this issue because I think the country wants to move on as soon as possible.
And the late Professor Sampi Telebranche has been remembered as a courageous and larger-than-life intellectual. A memorial service was held for him at Stellenbosch University today. The 84-year-old economist, anti-apartheid activist and author passed away from brain cancer last week. Telebranche spent many years researching and writing about poverty and inequality in South Africa. He did not shy away from publicly disagreeing with politicians, both in the old and the new dispensation. Telebranche leaves behind his wife and 5 children. He was cremated in a private ceremony. And one of the surviving leaders of the now infamous Seven Angels Ministries at Ngobo in the Eastern Cape, well, has spoken out to the SABC. I spoke to our reporter there, and this is what he had to say.
I would say the community must just forgive us because it's not all of us that were involved in that attack, no. And also I'm planning to engage with the leaders of the community to explain ourselves.
Well, let's take a look at that story from Ngcobo, where that incident regarding the breakthrough with police, and our reporter who is in Ngcobo also filed this report.
We go to sports now. Go to sports,
Well, just in the next, we'll take a look now at what's in your sports news. England's Eddie Pepperhall held off a challenge by countryman Oliver Fisher to win his first European Tour title at the Commercial Bank Qatar Masters. Pepperhall entered the final day at Doha Golf Club level with his compatriot at the top of the leaderboard. And while he opened up a 3-shot lead at the turn, an impressive fight back by Fisher meant a single stroke separated the pair as they went up the par 5 last. Pepperhall held off the Chade to finish on 18th under for the tournament, 1 shot ahead. While South African George Coetzee finished 4 shots off the pace with a 4-round total of 14 under to 74. And the cycling now, Team Movistar's Alejandro Valverde won Stage 5 and the overall Abu Dhabi Tour. In the United Arab Emirates, Miguel Angel Lopez of Astana Pro Team and Frenchman Juliana Alaphilippe of Quick Step Floors finished the stage in 2nd and 3rd place respectively. Valverde took the overall race from Vilko Kelderman, riding for Team Sunweb, who finished 2nd on the general classifications, with Lopez rounding out the podium in 3rd. And the Winter Olympics concluded in South Korea. Norway tops the medals table with 14 golds, the same as Germany, but with a record 39 medals overall, 8 more than the Germans. In the final event, Norwegian Marit Bjørgen won gold in the women's cross-country skiing 30 kilometers mass start classic, bagging 5 medals at the Games, 1 for every event she participated in. Bjørgen is now the most decorated Winter Olympian. Her 15 medals include 8 golds. Well, that's all from the news at 9. I'm Crisalda Lewis. Well, frankly speaking, with the public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane continues after the break. Have a great night.
Finally, getting the click in Xhosa right. Mowing the lawn without mowing the cable. When your washing machine gives you all your socks back.
With so many good deals at the Tops at Spa Surfest, you'll find any reason to celebrate. Buy a 6-pack of any Strongbow apple ciders handies for only $52.99. Only at the Tops at Spa Surfest.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. I'm JJ Tabane, and we're coming to you live from our studios here in Auckland Park. And my guest tonight, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. We're going to take some of your calls on 714-8052. You can follow us on Twitter, #Frankly Speaking. Lucky in Pretoria. Good evening to you, Lucky.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm all right. What's your question to the public protector?
Yes, I would like to ask the Advocate Mkhwebane that how can, on her report, how can she leave out Ms. Ace Mkhwebane? And then actually, what kind of a message does the report send to us as the public? Because we are waiting in eagerness what has happened in that dairy farm. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Lucky. We did deal with that a little bit, but you can come back to it. And while answering also, Sabelo on Twitter is saying, does she get any support from the Parliamentary committee, especially the Justice Committee headed by Ndate Matole Motshekga?
I must say I only appeared 3 times so far, and the engagements were fine, though I haven't had any feedback about the budget because the committee is there to at least facilitate and assist institutions like the Chapter 9 institution to at least be assisted in being supported more. So I would say we engaged and the support is there, but we haven't yet
Your predecessor
anything.
asked for more money, actually. And earlier on you had said there's something you couldn't do because you're going to need an additional 30 million and so on. In the 18 months, how many times have you followed up? Have you written to them? Have you pressurized them? Have you had meetings with them to say your resources are inadequate that are allocated to your office?
Yes, JJ. When I presented the annual report last year, and this year when I presented the strategic plan, I've even indicated that for that office to be fully functional, we'll need around 800 million. And we had to show them how we're going to spend that money, because currently our allocation is around 310 million. It was 318, but it was reduced with a further 8 million. We cannot be operational. I must say that the only money we're having is to pay employees, which is we are 50% half the structure which we are supposed to have. Therefore, if I have cases or complaints which we've received 4 years, 5 years ago, which will require me to use the very same resources which I don't have. So that's a serious challenge which I'm having.
Linked to that, do you believe that the opposition parties, right, are, in a sense, your partners in doing the work you're supposed to do? Because half of your cases point to administrative missteps by government, and that's a full-time job of opposition parties. Have you found that they are a partner in getting your work done or not?
They are assisting, because I must indicate that the complaints I've received from the opposition parties, for instance, I'll mention some of the complaints lodged by the EFF. What I like is that they will also go to an extent of even submitting the necessary evidence
and backing
material, so that at least when we do the investigation, we know which direction we need to follow. So
they're quite an important part of your office.
Yes, I mean, if they bring that to the fore, it also assists, because at the end of the day, we would be able to make sure that government has a clean governance and good governance. That's our intention.
So then how does it make you feel that the same opposition parties are now almost most of them saying that you must quit, you know, and they believe that with the cases you have lost, with all of these things that are coming left, right, and center, you know, your office's integrity is being questioned. How does it make you feel, and what has been your response to the calls that you must resign?
I must say that, anyway, South Africa, we have it's the constitutional democracy. People have the freedom of expression, and but that freedom of expression as well is limited, because at any rate, that is a constitutional institution. And I must indicate that it's not only 2 cases which I've investigated. As I'm saying, 40 reports I've issued since coming in, and those reports are having such an impact. I mean, look at the Mandela report, where the CFO now is suspended. The Lebanon report, Minister Mbalula was opening a satellite office, is one of the recommendations of some of my reports. Therefore, and I must indicate that judges have been losing how many appeals? I mean, their judgments are taken on appeal, and
but what
you
would
find
make,
that
what would
they
make
lose.
you quit? What would make you quit? If you were to look at your office being constantly under attack, right, vis-a-vis you're saying, well, you know, judges and people have a right to say whatever. What would make you quit right now?
I wouldn't quit, JJ.
Nothing will make you quit. You're going to stay your 7 years.
Yes, I'm going to be here until 2023.
Okay, let's take another call, Mr. Kama. Good evening to you, Mr. Kama, from Danzani.
Good evening, Mr. JJ Mkhwebane.
Evening to you, sir.
And good evening also to Advocate Mkhwebane.
Evening, Bab.
Yes. So my question actually relates to the issue of the Freddie Farm.
The Freddie Farm, yes. What is your question?
With regard to that one, actually, I just want to put it to just say a comment that Advocate Mkhwebane did mention that she wants to prioritize the matter of the state capture.
Yes.
And now we are seeing that the DA has put that matter on review, the matter of the Freddie Farm. We also have got this matter, actually the judgment, which also implicates Advocate Mkhwebane. My concern is that is Advocate Mkhwebane not supposed to act like her predecessor, to make sure that if she's given any kind of reference to look at the matter, is she not supposed to extend that? Is she supposed to be limited by terms of reference? Whereas she sees that the corruption or the fraud, really there are suspicions of that.
Yeah, all right, let's leave it there. The two callers, there seems to be dissatisfied over how you're handling this Freddie Farm thing. And I think it comes from a point of view that what has been reported and not disputed is that 30 million rand, right, was spent on a wedding, was channeled somehow fraudulently to a wedding somewhere in Sun City. And people feel that this report doesn't adequately deal with that particular glaring corruption that, in fact, nobody has disputed so far.
I'll repeat, JJ. Can South Africans read that report? The executive summary is 14 pages. Can you go and read those 14 pages and see what was the complaint, what we've investigated? I mean, the issues of the 30 million, remember it came with the Gupta leaks.
Yes.
And already the report was at its final stages. I indicated that my predecessor investigated. When I arrived, the report was ready. My only part was now to make sure that we finalize the report, but again, with the evidence we are having and the remedial actions which we are having.
After all the evidence in front of you, can you say to me that that 30 million rand thing is not a fact?
The 30 million might be a fact because if you check the inflated prices of the goods which were procured there, and I've indicated, I've reflected how much each possibly the milking machine, how much the cows were bought. I mean, those prices, it's only one company, Holstein, which the investigators in Free State consulted. But then we should have consulted or tested the market to be able to make sure that indeed, is this the price which is supposed to be charged? Is it 4 million, that milking machine, or charging it 55 million, in fact, it was 35 million, is it justifiable? Right, but what I must say is that the DA and CASAC has taken the matter on review, and all the evidence will be laid bare there so that South Africans can see that these are the facts.
Okay.
Another issue is that...
I've got to take a break. Let me just hold it there. We'll come back to it. We are talking to Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and after the break, we'll take more of your tweets, your calls, and some of your comments on social media. Stay tuned.
A warm welcome to one of your favorite weekly review analysis programs, Media Monitor. So let's look at the race itself.
It's just becoming a personality contest where people just want somebody to guard their own vested interest. And I feel that the country is at a point now where we need some sort of change.
It is ANC policy that they will have to implement.
We fairly know the direction the ANC wants to take. As a leader, you have to implement.
So what was it like on the ground in Kenya?
Well, the country is divided. The country is very divided.
I think within the country, for me, the one person that I criticize severely, and I'm not very happy with his approach, is Raila Odinga, with him pulling out.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor and catch on analysts unpacking top stories every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking with me, Nkgopotse JJ Tabane. You can follow us on Twitter at #FranklySpeaking. You can tweet us at JJ Tabane at the SABC News Online. Advocate Mkhwebane is my guest. Advocate, on Twitter, Isaac Muitanape says, why her remedial actions, even if they are serious, she does not recommend punitive measures but a slap on the wrist. You think your remedial actions are quite soft?
Remedial actions are not soft. I mean, we had a finding, one report, Ngakamudiri municipality, where the appointment made there was irregular, and the finding was that all the monies which were paid to that particular person needs to be paid back. A finding in Limpopo, the MEC of transport, where she appointed a company to provide a service which was out of her responsibilities. And that matter is on review, but then the finding was that she needs to pay back all the monies which were paid to those particular companies.
Some quite tough actions that you have you have recommended there. Amran Mufume on Facebook is saying, how is your office addressing the bad impression out there that the office of the PP is no longer independent and objective? I mean, it's one thing to dismiss that as not true, but he's asking, what are you doing to try and correct that perception of lack of independence from your office?
Is to remain focused, independent, doing my work without fear or favor, though now there's a lot of threat on the independence of the institution because I mean, if you have a personal cost on the public protector in her personal capacity, that is a threat to the independence of the institution, not only the current public protector, but any public protector who has made a finding and conducted the investigation in good faith. So I must say that there's a lot of work which we are doing with the team. And again, the findings which we are having, people are encouraged to go and read those reports and not only
I just
take
interrupt
few
there
issues.
on this issue about whether if costs are said to be ascribed to you in personal capacity, it's good or not. You would remember the case of the SABC where people appealed ad infinitum, right? And the courts were very, very harsh on that to say, don't do that with public money, right? Surely you would encourage that public institutions must be circumspect when they go about appealing cases, in a manner that they were going to use public funds.
Yes, we need to be very careful in that. We are a constitutional democracy. There's a rule of law, JJ. Therefore, if you are, like in this particular matter of ABSA, then it means I was not supposed to oppose this particular application and oppose the report and defend the report because it has to do with the powers of the public protector. So in that particular aspect, you then have personal costs on suspicion,
but if they find that the reasons were less than frank, surely the costs only come after they have assessed your reasons, and if they find them not being proper, not proper legal advice, surely there must be consequences. PP, you'll agree?
I don't agree with that. I mean, even if the very same institutions whether it's being a DG, whether it's being a minister who's appealing. Why are we saying there's a rule of law? The courts are there to interpret the law. The courts are there to give direction on a matter of law.
But people appeal 4, 5, 6 times, like we've seen in the cases of some of the parastatals, including the SABC itself, where in fact public monies were wasted and people deliberately knew that what they were doing was out of order.
I think if then it's something, same matter is repeated over and over, and
then there must be consequences.
But JJ, we need to look into the law. Again, we need to look into the finding of that particular court. Because unfortunately, again now, there is that issue of some of the judges not being objective. Because at the end of the day, you need not be influenced by the narrative or by the hearsay or by the suspicion. You need to focus on the law.
I've got to take the final break. After the break, we say goodbye to the public protector. Stay tuned.
After a horrific accident, major questions were asked.
So step one, I asked myself, do I really want to die? And my answer to that was, I'm not sure. And then step two was, do I want my parents to bury me? And the answer to that was no.
Learning kept his brain in full action on how the brain works.
When I was in hospital, right, as I was saying, to catch up with my peers, I started to become obsessed with memory techniques and how the brain works and how we retain information.
Touching lives is his continuous mission.
I now work for a non-profit where we deal with access issues regarding kids with disabilities and persons with disability. We're busy working on beach access.
Being wheelchair-bound did not stop fun in his life.
I party in a wheelchair. I laugh in a wheelchair. I smile in a wheelchair.
For all your uplifting stories, catch Bupilong every Friday.
This is your midday report. Good afternoon.
I will be faithful.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
Let's take a look at how African markets and currencies are performing now.
The central bankers say the success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is just a bubble.
Breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m. A meteorite hit the Earth 2 million years ago, creating an enormous impact of crater, about 10 kilometers in diameter, near Vredefort in the Free State, 100 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, now known as the Vredefort Dome, a South African World Heritage Site. The meteorite is said to have been larger than Table Mountain and caused a 1,000 megaton blast of energy. The impact would have heated about 70 cubic kilometers of rock and have increased the Earth's oxygen levels to a degree that made the development of multicellular life possible. The world has about 130 crater structures of possible impact origin. The Vredefort Dome is the largest in the world, followed by Sudbury Crater in Canada and the Chicxulub Crater in Mexico.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. We've run out of time completely, and thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. Advocate, we've run out of time. What is your parting shot to South Africa? Clearly, a number of people are skeptical about your office and what it stands for and what it has become. What is your parting shot to South Africa tonight?
I would say I'm glad that we have a lot of South Africans who have trust in the institution. As I've said, we've received more than 18,000 applications. and it means we are of value to South Africans, especially the people at the grassroots, because we are there for them. That's bread and butter issues, changing their lives. But again, as an institution, I'm there to make sure that I contribute to dealing with corruption, maladministration. And again, I've asked government to provide institutions like the Public Protector enough resources, because we can assist to change this wrong issue, or this cancerous issue of maladministration, which leads to corruption. Because when there's maladministration, then it's a fertile ground for corruption.
All right, we're gonna have
and the institution, I'm independent. Unfortunately, now I am going to be doing my work with some fear until such time I deal with this court matter.
We're going to have to leave it there, Advocate. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for your tweets, your comments, and joining us tonight on Frankly Speaking. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.
Corruption both in the public and the private sectors needs